Story 1. Scam me out of $1,000? It's gonna cost you $1 million.
TLDR, shady businessman booby traps account to collect overdue money and gets me blamed. Exposes he's grossly overcharging small businesses. I inherit his customers and drop the cost for his previous customers from over $1 million to $80,000. I'm going to keep this intentionally vague and I apologize for the long read, but this has been a little bit of a complex situation that requires a bit of backstory. I, 29M, own a specialized equipment cleaning and maintenance company. I've been running the company for the last 12 years. I take great pride in my work and run an honest business. We service everything from government facilities to small mom and pop operations, and I try to make everything as clear, transparent, and honestly priced as possible. For the last 10 years I've had a great relationship with Big Company. Big Company is a service provider, something of a middleman actually, in my industry. They contract me to service roughly 35% of their customer base, and we have grown to have a mutual respect for one another. They're probably my largest customer, or at least close. Well, roughly 2 years ago Big Company brought on another service provider to contract owned by Shady businessmen. Shady businessman claims he has many different skills and credentials and handles a lot of the more maintenance and installation side of things for Big Company. I often do follow-up work at businesses that he's done installs at. It's not good. Improperly installed equipment. Crazy repairs and electrical work that just don't make sense. It's horrible. Talking to customer after customer, I find he's taking advantage of their mechanical ignorance. Upcharging 400% the price of parts and double, even triple the usual going hourly rate for this kind of work. For example, a $300 part that would take 2 hours to install, he's charged $1,500 for the part and another $1,500 for labor. Crazy. I mention it Big Company and they tell me he's such a knowledgeable and experienced guy. Usually those kind of guys come at a premium. Whatever. I leave it be and stay in my lane. Flash forward about a year and to the start of my troubles I get a call from the owner of Big Company telling me, hey, we have a new account, they're a bit more complicated, a little out of our wheelhouse. Can we give the account to you? Sure. Within a week I'm down at the account doing a cleaning and maintenance. The type of system they have is a bit more complicated, but I am very experienced and familiar with these systems and it isn't an issue. Or so I thought. I go to start everything up and the system isn't turning on properly. The owner comes in and says, hey, we're going to have to start operations in a little over an hour. Are we good to go? I tell him the system seems to not want to start. I'm going to track down the issue and we should be good to go. He gives me a frustrated huff and leaves the room. 15 minutes later I get a call from Shady businessman. Hey OP, I heard you're down at XYZ account. Owner wants you to stop work immediately and head out. I'm going to come down there to take over. Owner comes back in the room and confirms, hey, we're like 45 minutes from open and we've used Shady businessmen in the past, we just need to get this system going. Sure. I take off. A few days go by and I get a call from the account. They tell me I'm going to need to call my insurance and file a claim. Their system is broken. Needs a new motor. $58,000 repair cost. We go back and forth for a while with me trying to figure out what they're talking about. They're adamant I broke this system on the word of Shady businessman. Call insurance or CS in court. I call up my insurance. They're specific to my industry and have specialists that know the ins and outs of the job. I tell their expert every step I performed in my work. They say there's no way I damaged the motor, but they'll take care of everything. A little while later I get a call from Shady businessman. He says, hey man, I'm sorry. It wasn't meant to be you. What do you mean? Shady businessman, well, to be honest, I had done a lot of installation work for this company like 6 months back. They owe me something like $12,000. I figured if their system wasn't working they'd call me in a pinch, have to pay me the money they owe me to get me down there. Plus, I'd have some guaranteed work doing the repairs on their system. It was supposed to be one of big company's guys though, not you. So I'm sorry, man. I was livid. This dude booby-trapped the system so that when it was being taken apart, the release of this sensor would short the motor. I try everything I can to get him to admit it again, text me, email me, say it on the phone. Anything now that I'm collecting evidence. No dice. I tell my insurance. They say they'll get everything taken care of. It's all I can do. I tell the account, which is a pretty small business, and they're livid. See, the thing is, Shady businessman is a smooth talker. He makes up a lot of complicated stuff the customer doesn't understand, and they just think he's the smartest guy around. So far he's cost this small business near $70,000 in unnecessary work. I warn off my customer base from this dude, try to get word around in the industry a little bit, but it's also hard to do so without seeming like some bitter dude without any evidence trying to blame shift. 4 months go by. I get a call from the account's insurance. Standard business insurance. This insurance agent is a dill hole. Apparently, he worked in the industry for a short while and considers himself an expert. Imagine being a surgeon and getting lectured by someone that took an anatomy class once. He was so obnoxious. He's telling me I need to get a different insurance company because my insurance is garbage. They've denied the claim because they're claiming it's not my fault, and anyone with half a brain can figure out that I'm at fault. I explain the situation to him. He just thinks I'm some dude trying to avoid accountability. They've paid out $58,000 for repairs on this system, and they want me to pay $1,000 for the customer's deductible. Non-negotiable, pay or court. I'm so over this situation, I just pay the $1,000 and move on. Well, that same day, I'm picking up supplies from a warehouse and I run into big company's owner and owner of even bigger company that I've been trying to pick up as a customer. We get to talking and I tell them about the insurance call I got, explain the backstory a bit. Their faces both go pale. Apparently, they've both been using Shady businessmen and they've been having all manner of issues, but he's such a smooth talker, they've never connected it to him. They begin telling me all the issues they've been having at their different locations. Everything from electrical problems to some state-of-the-art equipment that was installed by this guy that created a whole slew of problems that, surprise surprise, only he could fix. They're curious if I can take over handling his role for them. They want to cut ties. I tell them certainly. I've expanded what my business can cover and we can take over the backlog of work Shady businessman has waiting for him. The next day they both send me lists of all the work they're waiting on him to do. One by one I start putting together quotes for each job. The list they sent me has Shady businessman's existing quote figures on there, and I'm finding that most every quote I'm putting together is half, if not a quarter of the price, and that's being generous to my own wallet. Some jobs include fees for things that sound complicated but are just made-up terminology. One job, for example, he's upcharged the equipment cost from $75 for the part to $600, is charging $1,800 in labor for a one-man, 2-hour install, and has added an additional hazardous material charge, not at all a thing for this job, for nearly $1,200. So $3,600 total to a little mom and pop brick and mortar that I dropped the material down to $75, the labor down to $600, and dropped the hazmat removal entirely. From $3,600 to $675. We're so specialized that really there's only a few of us in the state, and this mom and pop felt like they had no choice. Another job was $800 per $100 part times 6 plus nearly $15,000 in labor, for a 6-hour job, for something one guy could do, plus an additional mileage fee of $400, he lives 10 miles away, plus a material transportation fee like what? These 6 parts could fit in a backpack. Over $20,000 for a job that I ended up charging $3,000 for. This is another small business trying to open a second location, and this dude is being so shady and manipulative with his pricing. He's going to drive them out of business as they're trying to take a leap and open a second location. Breaks my heart. All in all, after I priced everything out, he had bid out a little over $1 million in work for himself over the next 6 months that I got down to just over $280,000. From a tad over $1 million to a bit over $280,000. I could not believe it. My new customers I've inherited have all been so grateful and gotten me connected with even more work in just a short while. I've easily doubled my business as a result of this over such a short time. Shady Businessman is apparently not doing well. The smaller businesses have some sort of Facebook group that word has been going around and not to use him, and it's gotten to the bigger business and corporations, and now his credentials have been exposed as bogus. Businesses he was doing work for, big household names, are calling me to take over as their local provider, and it's just the start. I genuinely hope people start taking legal action against him. Taking advantage of businesses, often struggling to get just because.
Comment 1, Epic. Appreciate the time it took you to write this out. The world needs more honest business people like you.
Comment 2. There needs to be a new category. This isn't petty, this is downright legit, rightly earned revenge. Fuck that guy and unfuck him. He doesn't deserve the fuck. Well played, OP.
Comment 3. If this is petty, I'd hate to piss you off. And hashtag X200B. Well done.
Comment 4. This is an epic, Fafo, glad you came out on top.
Comment 5. We had a guy like that, he would come and service our fridge and freezer units. Would always be less gas that needed topping up constantly, BCS, he couldn't find the leak. Well, that changed one day. One of my family member who ran another store came across another engineer and sent him to us. Turns out that he would charge for a full bottle but only add in half. The leak was a pressure controller valve that was turned just ABT right to let a tiny bit of gas out every time the compressor would start up. The maintenance that should have been done was never done properly, so many things he would miss out. His call-out charge was $200, we would get it for free, while a mango lassi would go a long way, or Laban, gas bottle $400 to $150, or however much was needed. He also found a few other faults that should have been easy to pick up. Never called the guy again, told a few other shop owners. He retired shortly after.
Comment 6. This sounds like brewery repair to me.
Story 2. Not such a bubble bath after all.
I had an aunt growing up who was not a very nice person. She was a very loud, large cranky meth head who was in and out of jail/rehab every year, leaving my widowed single mom and us kids to clean up her mess constantly. When I say mess, I don't know if anyone has seen the conditions of these drug houses after a bunch of them have been living in one, but you can't ever see the floor, and one time we had to throw out 20 bottles of piss from a living room. That said, one time she was released from jail and staying with us. I was probably 10. She loved to tie up our one and only bathroom in our apartment to take severe long bubble baths, always falling asleep in them. This was the 90s and bath beads were very, very popular at the time. Somehow, I had acquired some very pastel-colored and very shiny paintballs. LOL, and being a good niece, of course, I offered to share my bath beads with her. LOL, I can still hear the yelling and screaming. Will always be one of my happy thoughts. From what I remember, the paint washed off the bathtub no problem, but she was colorful for a couple days, LOL.
Comment 1, awesome.
Comment 2, OMG brilliant.
Comment 3, that was a very colorful revenge. Comment 4, thank you for my first laugh this morning.
Comment 5. Petty revenge, best served painted.
Comment 6, this is mean of me, but can I hope that since you refer to the aunt in the past tense, that it's not because you're NC with her, but that the drugs finally got to her?
Story 3. Parking War.
There is one person who likes to park very close to the parking spot line on their right side, so it's easier for them to get out of their car on the left side. The spot next to the one next to that spot is the end spot that's designated by a line and the curb. The lady likes to back into the space and park very close to the line, so her driver's side door that's next to the curb has a lot of space for her to get out. My main beef is with the lady because she's constantly parking crooked and over the line to discourage people from parking in between those two spaces. Well, I drive a small two-door car, so I've been making sure to squeeze in between those two spots whenever I can. The lady that backs into the spot recently parked directly on the line, so naturally I also parked as close to her as I can. I hate these selfish bastards for only thinking of themselves, so I'll inconvenience them as much as I can. Note, our parking lot is really big with plenty of spaces, although it's a 5-minute walk to the office, and they want to monopolize one of the spots closest to the office building? Not on my watch.
Comment 1. I used to drive a beater of a subcompact. I loved squeezing into spaces like this. More than once I was able to block the driver's door.
Comment 2. When my husband was in the military, I adopted the habit of backing into parking spaces. It allows me to exit the parking spot with less worry of backing into another car or a pedestrian. It also gives the drivers who pull into the adjacent spot the ability to see around my non-sedan vehicle when they exit their spots. I used to drive a Chevy Uplander, which was the same length as a Tahoe, but narrower and closer to the ground. I went to a shopping center and found a spot in the front row of parking, which was along a sidewalk. It was an end spot next to an island of grass. The second spot had a giant truck parked over the line into the first spot. I backed my van into the spot with my tires narrowly touching the curb of the island. Then grabbed the post-it notes and marker I kept in my van and left a note saying, "Thanks for saving me a great parking spot that everyone else was too chicken to use." I stuck the note on the truck window from my driver's set, rolled my window back up, climbed across to the passenger side to get out, and went into whatever store I was visiting that day. When I got back, the truck was gone. They had to climb across from the passenger side to get into their truck. Comment 3. Pulled into Sam's a few years ago. Someone with a brand new looking Corvette had parked in a prime front spot, 2 spots. I had an old beater at the time, and a spot next to the vet was empty. I put the passenger side of my beater as close to the vet's driver's side as I could, without actually touching it. When I returned, I was expecting someone to be waiting, because there was no way anyone could get into that car from the driver's side. But it was gone. I had a giggle just picturing someone crawling through the passenger side of a Corvette. It would have been entertaining to watch. I get that it was a pretty fancy expensive car, but if you're going to pull that crap, do it out further in the lot where no one else is parking. There's a ton of room out there. Comment 4. Well, if she can park where she wants, so can you, smiley face.
Comment 5. Can you get there earlier? I would arrive before her every day and take that spot. Might even relax outside the car drinking my coffee to watch her reaction.
Comment 6. At our local shopping center, a guy who worked there had a Corvette. He parked and took 4 spaces so no one would park next to him. I was okay with that because he parked at the farthest part of the lot and there were never a need for spaces within 50 feet from him. At a mall, I was pretty hefty back then, people parked so close to my van on both sides, I had to get in the back through the sliding door and sort of flop over the gap between the front bucket seats.